So this is a video about getting myself out of a slump. So I found myself in a slump, and I think my motivation is kept in check by the fear of imperfection. The world has become black and white, and I need some colour to suddenly come upon me to break the monotony. I mean, is it something I can change, or do I have to wait for inspiration? Where can I go to get inspired, and how do I get it?
No! Put a filthy thing all over my new carpet! Look, it's filling the room! How are we going to breathe? Quick out from the woolen wrong here! I'll try and hold it down. There it is. Hey, look at me! I'm in colour! Come on in, it's lovely! I can't hold it on very long. Here it goes, Arthur! Oh, what a beautiful room!
So the reason these books work so well is because they are profound in some way. They all have some profound or mind-bending idea that can break you out of a slump. And this book in particular tells the story of time and infinity in a way that I've never read before. So our protagonist is a practicing Mormon. He dies, but instead of going to the heaven he expects, he finds himself in hell, where a demon tasks him with the challenge of finding the book that tells the story of his life. And he's in what appears to be infinite library of books. As he picks up the first book, he finds just gibberish, a random series of letters that don't make any sense. So they continue searching, him and his friends. His friends are searching for their own stories. They get split up, they reunite. And over a period of days, months, going into years and even decades, it takes all that time to even find a single comprehensible word, which they celebrate when they do find. Hundreds of years pass, and he eventually comes across a series of 23 coherent words in a sentence. And he's overcome with joy, and tears stream down his face. Of course, the sentence doesn't tell much, it's quite incomprehensible, but to him it's profound and poetic. I've never read of an account of infinity or of lengths of time in any other short book that does such a good job. It's a profound read. And it reminded me how fortunate we are to have any literature at all. From this book I learned time is limited. Unlike hell, I can pick up any old book and find some wisdom. So this is number 1. Sometimes we need thoughts other than our own to get out of a slump state, which is where books come in. We're borrowing other people's thinking. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky. What we have in Prufrock here, Eliot's modernist poem, is rather than a clear linear narrative or sing-song lyrical poetry as we may have had in poems of the past. What we have here instead is little snippets of broken up images, little snapshots of time. And the poem itself is built upon the passing of time and history. So we have allusions here to Shakespeare, to Michelangelo. The poem begins with a quotation from Dante. All of these are earlier works. As Eliot said in his longer poem, The Wasteland, all we have is a heap of broken images. And in Prufrock, the past is our background, but it's not our foreground. The present moment may come as a result of the past, but our present moment is not completely dictated by the past. Where we are currently cannot be fully explained by the past. We're not chained to the past. And like his verse in this poem, we can be fractured and free and broken from the past. We can dismantle what came before us and forge a completely new path, an unexpected one. One of the phrases that's repeated in the poem is, "Do I dare? Do I dare? Do I dare disturb the universe?" Well, yes, I do. The present moment can be free of the past. I live in my body, and surely my body provides me with benefits, but also limitations. And by living within my body, I'm somehow defined by the shell I live in, right? There are lots of ways of reading Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. If you haven't read it yet, it's the story of a man who wakes up to find himself transformed suddenly into a giant insect of some kind. But one way of reading the book is to recognize that when he discovers himself to be an insect, he continues to have the same kinds of thoughts about getting to work and being productive and making something with his life that he would have had before his body was transformed. In other words, he doesn't change as a being within the body into some kind of gross insect or creature. He's still himself. And that's one of the ways that I like to read this story. We're not really completely defined by the body that we live within. I mean, imagine if you suddenly broke your leg or had a terrible accident. It would change you to some extent, but it wouldn't change your being. We identify with our bodies, but we're not completely our bodies. And our bodies do change. We age and we change physically, but the person within is not chained to that identity. We are not our bodies. There's one vital ingredient that everybody needs in order to think and create, and that is space. In Virginia Woolf's day, women were not typically given a room of their own, and her masterful essay argues for the need of female creatives and writers to have a dedicated space, not only in the house but also in society. It's a brilliant essay. It uses metaphor and imaginary characters and anecdotes, even using an imaginary Shakespeare's sister to argue would she have been known as a writer in Shakespeare's time. But what it reminded me of is the need for all creative people to have space both mentally and physically in order to create.
Oh, what a beautiful room!
In order to create, we need space. Sometimes, in order to solve a problem, we need extreme thinking. In 1729, Jonathan Swift decided to issue a tract in which he offered a modest proposal for dealing with the problem of poverty in Ireland. And his proposal, if you haven't read this, is that the population could eat the infant flesh of the poor. Now, obviously, this is an extremely immoral and radical thing to say, and the thing is written as a satire, but it brings us so completely out of the box so as to force us to think more seriously about the moral dilemma of poverty. By bringing us so far outside the bounds of morality, it forces us to look back to where those bounds are. And this type of radical thinking is very useful for analysing and solving problems and getting our thinking out of a slump state. I suppose one way of looking at this is that Swift takes us away from our humanity in order to return and look back at our humanity more objectively. It's a brilliant way of forming an argument. I wonder what problems we could solve by looking at them in more radical and revolutionary ways.
Be prepared to think radically.
These are my 5 one-day reads for getting yourself out of a slump. But if you want to get more out of the reading time that you have, as limited as it may be, check out this video. I hope you enjoy.